Everybody, today we are going to learn about separation of substances from sixth standard, right? So, yeah, let's begin. First of all, if I ask you, what do you understand by separation? What is the meaning of separation? Separation means when you are trying to separate things, basically removing things from it, right? So that is called a separation of substances. Now, if I tell you that in everybody's house, mother is making tea, right? After the tea is prepared completely, what do? They use a strainer, right? They use a strainer to remove the tea leaves, right? We are not drinking tea with tea leaves, right? Is there anybody who is drinking like that? I just hope that nobody is doing it, right? So after the tea is prepared, mothers are using that strainer. So what that strainer is doing? Separating the tea leaves, because that is not useful for us, right? So separation of substances can be of various types. Mostly we are separating substances for removing the harmful particles from it. Okay, whatever particle is not required for us to have it to use while cooking, so we are removing it from the required substance, right? See, if tea leaves are there, if tea leaves are there, you are easily removing it with the help of tea strainer, right? But what if I give you guava? There is a basket, okay, and I have given you guava and mango. Now I told you to separate guava and mango. What you will do? You will be having a basket. In that basket you will keep mangoes, and in the other basket you will separate the guavas. So this separations, when it is of large or bigger sizes, that is very easy. Correct, that is very easy, because see, mango is big in size, guava is also big in size. But if what we will do, what to do if it is, if the particles are very small, if the particles are very small, means what? Suppose if I have given you rice, okay, if I have given you rice, and in that rice you might have heard people in the old time, they used to say that clean the rice then cook it, right? Clean it then use it, like that. So what do they mean? What they does they mean? Apart from washing, what you have to do, you have to pick the materials which is present in it. Okay, you have to pick out the materials which are present in it, which is not required by us. So separation is nothing but, if we want to define separation, separation is nothing but removal of impurities. Removal of impurities. Okay, removal of impurities is separation. Fine. What is impurity now? Impurity is nothing but harmful substances, basically. Pure, impure, right? Pure, impure, pure is complete, like only one composition will be there. Impure means there will be some mixture, right? So impure is nothing but harmful substance, harmful substances. Fine. So we are removing the harmful substances which are present in our useful materials. It can be for eating, for using. So whenever we are removing those harmful substance, which is known as impurities, from the useful substance, that is termed as separation of substances. Fine. I hope that I am clear with it. Fine. Moving to next. We have methods for separation. Different types of methods for separation. We have different types of method for separation of substances. Fine. We are going to learn all of them one by one. We are going to learn one by one. Okay, the very first one is hand picking. Hand picking, as the name suggests, okay, as the name suggests. See, this diagram you have to observe. What do you see here? See, in this suppose this is pulses, okay, this is pulse. Fine. And here you spot the black thing, right? This black thing is what is it? Nothing but impurity. It is impurity. So see, this finger, can you see what they are doing? They are picking up this black material and placing it over here. Okay, they are placing it over here. So what they are doing? See, the quantity of impurity in that substance is very less. Okay, the quantity of impurity is very less in that substance. So it can be removed by the process of hand picking, where you are just using your hand to pick out the materials from it, right? This pulse is in large quantity, and you, if you spot there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 6 or 7 are there. So for those things where the quantity of impurity is less, where the quantity of impurity is less, in such cases we are using hand picking. Then we have to use hand picking. Then use hand picking. Fine. For larger quantities, we don't prefer it. For larger quantities, we don't prefer it, right? And the impurity will be little bigger in size, where you can spot maybe it is different present in different color, or the size of the impurity is little big. Fine. So hand picking is used where you have small quantity or less quantity. Now next one is threshing. Okay, next method for separation of substances is threshing. If you see this man, what he is doing, he is having what? Stalk of grain. Stalk of grain. Now what is stalk? This thing, this stick, basically. If you have seen wheat or rice, you might have seen it will be like very long thing, right? And to that end part, the grains will be attached. Okay, this stick will be there. To this stick, at the top there will be grains attached to it. It can be either your wheat or your rice. Fine. So how do we separate that grains, food particles from the stalk? This stick is nothing but stalk. The stick which is present in the food grains is called as stalk. So for removing the grains from the stalk, what do? We are threshing. So this man, what he is doing, he is taking a bundle of those stalks and he is hitting at some surface. When he is hitting at the surface, what is happening? The grains particles are separated at one place. Okay, the grain particles are separated at one place. Mostly this is done for wheat. This is done for mustard seeds. Okay, so threshing, what we are doing? Removal of grain particles, removal of grain particles from the stalk. Fine, from the stalk. I hope that you understood that what is stalk. Stalk is nothing but the stick to which, not just stick, or you can say any like long particle to which the grains are attached. So the process of removal of grain particles from stalk is called as threshing. Okay. The process of removal of grain particle from the stalk is called as threshing. From the stalk is called as threshing. Fine. Now here we are using bundles of things, right? We are not using less quantity. We are using bundles. In bundles, they'll be having a lot of grain particles. Fine. Till now, we read about two methods of separation. First one is very easy. That is hand picking. Second one is your threshing. In hand picking, what you are doing, you are just using your hand to pick out the impure materials because it is in less quantity. So it is very easy for you to do it. Next one is threshing. In threshing, we are removing grain particles from the stalk. Fine. Now, let's move to the next process of separation. Okay, let's move to the next process. Here, if you see what this lady is doing, have you seen somebody doing like that in your village? These things you will observe in village. Okay, in city you are like simply getting everything. You are not able to see what is actually happening behind getting the food grains. So what this lady is doing, if you see, these particles, right? This small particles which is falling from top to bottom. What is actually happening over there? This is nothing but known as of separating method of separating compounds. Okay, method of separating compounds of a mixture by help of wind. By help of wind is called winnowing. Means what is happening? Can anybody tell me? Anyone? Yes? No? Yes? See, in this, what will happen? Generally, suppose you have a, now go back to the threshing thing. Okay, in threshing, what was happening? You were you were hitting that stalk with on the hard surface. So food grains were separated. Now food grains will be having husk. Okay, husk means what? Husk means cover of food grain basically. Like light, it will be very lighter in weight. It is very lighter in weight. Okay, so husk will be there, and then you have food grains. You have food grains. That will be heavier. Why it will be heavier? Even you know that wheat is heavier. Generally, if you see the seed of a wheat, it will be heavy as compared to the cover, that is husk. So what we are doing, we are having the mixture of husk and grain in one plate or anything you can say for the separation. So what this lady is doing, she is just removing like this. Okay, so what is happening as she is doing like that, heavier food grains, okay, heavier food grains are falling down for here, but whatever impurities which are lighter in weight, they will be flown away. Okay, they will be flown away at one place, and they will be collected at that place only. That depends on the direction of the wind. Which direction the wind is going, that direction the husk will be collected. But the food grains, as they are heavy, they will fall down. Fine. So what we are doing exactly in winnowing, we are separating lighter impurities present in heavier grains. Okay, present in heavier grains. Got it? Fine. So in winnowing, what we are doing, we have a food grain. To that food grain, we have husk. Husk is nothing but the covering of that food grain. It will be very lighter in color, lighter in weight. So what is happening, whenever we are trying to separate, we will keep in plate and we will just make it fall down. When it is falling down, the lighter particles will flow away. You know, right? Lighter, if you have seen the objects which are lighter in weight, they will be easily carried out by the winds, right? They will be easily carried out by the winds, but the heavier food grains will fall down. Fine. So in winnowing, we are doing that. Fine. This example is for husk of grains. This is done for husk of grains. Husk of grains. Just now I told you what is husk. So I guess that I don't have to tell you again and again that what exactly is husk, right? Yeah, fine. So let's move to the next one. Now here, after this, see, these things were for small little things, right? This were for small things like when you are doing hand picking, it is very less in quantity. But what about the things which are little bit complicated? For complicated impurities, what do we do? So for complicated impurities, we have sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. Sedimentation, decantation, and filtration we have. Now, what we are doing in sedimentation process, let's start with sedimentation. Fine. Let's start with sedimentation. In sedimentation, what we are doing, suppose, okay, let's suppose you have a beaker. In that beaker, you are adding soil. Okay, you are adding soil to that beaker. In that beaker, water is already present. That soil particle you are adding. Fine. Leave it undisturbed. Leave it undisturbed. Leave it undisturbed. What you will observe after some time, you will observe something like this. What is happening over here? If you see, this thing is nothing but your soil particles. Okay, these are nothing but your soil particles which are settled at the bottom. Fine. And this is your water. This is the activity. You can try it at home. This you can try it at home without, this is like without harming anything. Fine. Take a glass, transparent glass, and in that take water. To that water add 2 to 3 spoons of soil. Leave it for some time. You will observe that water will be at the top and the soil particle will be settled down. Why it is happening? What is the reason? What is the science behind it? Basically, soil is heavier as compared to water. Okay, soil is heavier as compared to water. So what is happening? As it is heavier, it will settle at the bottom. Heavy material, right? So it will settle at the bottom. Now, as the water is lighter, it will be at the top. Fine. You might have seen in ocean, sea, all those things that if suppose water is there, right? In that plastics will be floating. Plastic bottles, polythenes, and all those, they will be floating. Why they are floating? What is the reason behind it? They are floating because they are lighter in weight as compared to water. So they are not submerged deep down until unless it is filled with water or some impurity, it won't go deep down. It will be floating on the surface, right? So in sedimentation, the heavier particle settles at the bottom. The heavier particle settles at the bottom. At the bottom. Okay, the heavier particle settles at the bottom. And what do we call this heavier particle? These heavier particles are called as sediments. Okay, these heavier particles are called as what? Sediments. So this is one method of separation where we are separating heavier to lighter particle. Okay, heavier to lighter particle when they are mixed together in water. When they are mixed together in, not just in water, in any solvent, you can say. Fine. After that, we have decantation. We have decantation. In decantation, what is happening? See, the water, okay, the water which was on the top or while doing sedimentation is taken out in another beaker. Okay, that is collected in the another beaker. The process of separation of liquid, the process of separation of liquid from solid particle, from solid particle is called as decantation. Okay, it's called as decantation. Fine. See, this is solid particle. Soil, it's not liquid, right? It is solid. There are 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. I hope that you know it, right? Solid is which is having the molecules which are tightly bounded. Liquid, where the intermolecular spaces are little bit more. In the gases, what is happening? The intermolecular space is very, very, very less. Okay, it won't be present at all. Fine. It will be very, like, they will be having very far intermolecular spaces, right? So in decantation, what happened? When we are adding soil to water, the water will be at the top. This water is taken out in the another beaker, and this process is nothing but decantation. Okay, where you are taking out the liquid from the solid particle. It is called as nothing but what? Decantation. Fine. Now, after decantation, we have filtration. After decantation, we have filtration. So now what happens in filtration? See, in filtration, what is happening generally, if suppose you have taken that water, right? That water which you collected already here, fine. You have collected the water in another beaker. In that water, you will observe some impurities will be floating. See, few particles will be there in the soil which are not, which is not, we are not able to dissolve. So what will happen? They will be floating. As I told already earlier that it will be floating on the surface, right? So this, in this water, what will happen? The impurities will be floating. So this impurity, now we want to, still we want to filter it out. Then what we will do, still we want to do the separation. We want to do the separation so that we get the clean water. So for this, we go for filtration. Okay, for this, for separating the impurities which is present in the process of while doing decantation is called as filtration, right? We are, what we are doing over here, we kept a filter paper. Okay, you will see in the lab that you will be having a filter paper. What is the use of this filter paper? This filter paper, okay, will soak up the impurities. Means whatever was floating on top, it will be soaked up by your filter paper. Okay, filter paper will soak it up. After soaking it, the liquid which was present in the beaker will be completely collected as pure water. Okay, pure water. See, here it is written pure water in beaker, right? So this is your glass funnel which you are using. In that glass funnel, you will keep filter paper, right? This filter paper will collect the all impurities, fine. And what you are using? Muddy water basically, which we use in the decantation, which we use in the process of decantation. Same thing we are using. Or you can say directly you have taken mud water and little, like, amount of soil is very, very less, and you mixed it in the water, left it undisturbed for some time. Then you pour that water into filter paper, and the process of this, whatever we are doing with the help of filter paper, is called as filtration. So filtration is defined as the process of filtering out. Filtering means what? You might have heard filter is there. In old times, we used to say, right, we have filter. Now we say that we have purate, we have RO, right? So what does this filter do? Filter will help to separate the impurities. The process of filtering out the impurities with the help of filter paper, or it can be any material, or with the help of any material, like your tea strainer, right? Help of any material, right? So you are doing filtration. Fine. So in this slide, we learned about three things: sedimentation, decantation, filtration. So these three are interrelated. If somebody has to understand, you have to go one by one. Sedimentation is where you are taking a beaker, right? Where you are taking a beaker. In that beaker, what you are doing, you are adding, already water is there, you are adding soil, you are leaving it undisturbed for some time. What is happening? You will see that the water will be collected at the top, and the soil particles which are solid basically will be at the bottom. This solid impurities are called as our sediments, or you can say whatever is settling down at the bottom is called as sediments. Now the water which is collected here will be separated out in another beaker, just water, liquid thing. Okay, so this was solid, this thing was solid, this thing is liquid. So the separation of liquid from the solid particle is called as decantation. Fine. Now decantation will be having some or the another material which we still want to separate. For that, we will go for filtration process. In filtration, what we are doing, we are using filter paper, we are using funnel, and we are pouring this muddy water into it. The whatever impurities are there, they will stick to the filter paper, and the pure water will be collected in the another beaker. Fine, fine. So till now, how many we learned? Tell me the number. Can you tell? See, 3 here, 3 there, 6. Total 6 we have learned. What we are learning? This is very, very important to keep in mind that what you are learning the separation of substances. Fine. Let's move to the next one. You might have seen evaporation also. I have used this diagram to tell you, not all the process are important into this. Just two things are very important. First one is evaporation. What is evaporation? If I ask somebody, what is evaporation? Conversion of water into vapors, right? Conversion of water into vapors. Now, you might have seen that, suppose if you take a container, in that water is there, you keep on stuff. After some time, you will see that water will start to boil, right? If you keep any plate over it, what you will see, if you are not keeping plate over it, what you will see, vapors, gas will be evolving, right? If you are keeping that plate over it, if you are basically covering it, you won't be able to observe the vapors. But if you are not keeping that plate, or you are covering it with the lid, what you will observe? You will observe that the water, after some time, it is boiling to some very high extent. Okay, after that, you will see that it is converting into gas form. That is nothing but vapors. Fine. So evaporation is the process where the conversion of water into vapors takes place, right? So how do we use this as how do we use it for separation of substances? We use this for salt water. In sea, salt water will be there, right? So we are using to evaporation process to get salt. Fine. So evaporation is also very crucial method for separation of substances. Fine. Yes. Now, after evaporation, we have condensation. What is condensation? See, this is nothing but conversion of vapors into liquid, opposite of evaporation. Okay. So what is going to happen over there? See, once you are converting, suppose if you have a beaker, okay, if you have a beaker, you covered it, now you are heating it. When you are heating, whatever vapors will be settling on this lid, after some time it will cool down. Okay, after some time it will cool down, and after cooling down, they will fall back into your container. Fine. Did you understand what did I say? I am saying that after you are raising the temperature of liquid, it will go up, it will evaporate. But after completing the evaporation, after some time, the temperature will decrease. As the temperature decreases, they will come back in the form of liquid. So example of this is our rain. How rain is taking place? With the help of condensation, right? The sea water, this is getting hot, okay, due to sun rays, then it is getting evaporated. After evaporation, temperature is raised very high. After some time, the temperature comes down. As it comes down, the cloud cools down. As it cools down, this will be converted into liquid form, and this is how our rain takes place. Fine. All good, all fine till here. Now, one of the last thing is sieving. Okay, which I had to tell you. Sieving. What is sieving? Basically, you might have seen wheat flour will be there. Okay, wheat flour. And you will be having a container like this, which will be having basically a mesh. Okay, at the bottom, they'll be having something like this net thing, right? So if you are pouring this wheat flour into it, what will happen if you have a wheat flour? Suppose downside you have another big container. In that big container, your wheat flour will be collected, and this impurities which is present in the wheat flour will be collected at the top. So sieving is also one of the process where we are separating impurities with the help of a sieve. With the help of a sieve. Sieve is nothing but strainer, you can say, strainer of different sizes. Strainer. Now, at the construction site, you might have seen that suppose sand. Okay, sand is there. Sand will be having some stones into it, right? So you might have observed something like this, right? Onto this, they'll be having net, correct? They'll be having net like this. What they will do, they will throw sand on it. They will throw sand on it. So backside, the sand particles will be collected, but front side, the bigger size of impurities will be collected. Why they are not able to pass? Because the size of this sieve is very, very small. They will only pass the fine particles, right? They will pass only fine particles, due to which the bigger impurities are collected over here, and the smaller size particles are collected at the back. So sieve is also very, very important. We are using daily in our lives. Fine. So this is about how we are going to separate different impurities with the help of different process. It's not like that only one process is enough to separate all the impurities. You will be having different types of impurities to separate it. Right. So what we learned in this chapter, we learned about methods of separation of substances. Let's revise it. First one is hand picking, where you are just using your hand to remove the impurities. Fine. Then you have threshing. For threshing, what you are doing, you are having a stalk of grain which you are hitting very hard on the surface, that the grain particles are collected, and you are having the stalk. Now the grain particles which you collected still has the outer covering which is very lighter in weight, and that needs to be separated. For the separation of that, what we are doing? We are doing a process which is known as winnowing. Okay. See, in the diagram, as you can see, the lady is removing it by keeping it very high. When you are keeping it high and removing, all the lighter particles will be collected at the one place, and heavier particle will be placed at the bottom. Right? So this is used for separation of husk from the grain. Next is your impurities, where you have added the things, basically mixed it. So you have to separate it. Then how you are going to separate? With the help of sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. In sedimentation, you are adding water and then soil. You will leave it for some time. You will observe that soil is at the bottom, water is at the top. Right? So the soil which is present at the end or bottom is called as sediment, and that water is collected into another beaker. Okay? Water is collected into another beaker. Now that process of separation of water into another beaker is called as decantation. Fine. Sedimentation process, sediment will settle down. Decantation process, the water which was present in the sedimentation process will be taken out. Right? Now, filtration process. In filtration process, you are removing impurities which are present in the decantation process. See, all of them are interrelated to each other. So this decantation process, what you are going to do? You are using a filter paper. Filtration, what you are going to do? You are using a filter paper. In that filter paper, all the impurities, lighter weight impurities which were present will be collected in the filter paper, and the pure water will be collected at the bottom. Fine. Now, moving to next, you have evaporation. In evaporation, what is happening? Water is converted into vapors, and whatever required thing is there, we are able to hold it. Like salt water, we need salt from the ocean, right? How we are getting salt? From the ocean. So how we are getting that salt? With the help of method of evaporation. Now next thing is condensation. Condensation is nothing but conversion of vapors back into the liquid. After that, you have sieving. Okay, you have a process of sieving. That sieving is nothing but where you have a sieve tube or sieve, like tea strainer, like wheat flour, you will be having sieve, right? So you will be having a net at the bottom, or you can say anywhere you will be having a net. Generally, for household purpose, you are having net at the bottom. So you are pouring wheat flour. When you are shaking it, what is happening? The fine wheat flours are collected at the bottom, and the impures are present at the top only. Fine. This is used for construction, like this generally sieving is used for construction at the site of construction also. This is used for site of construction as well. Fine. So this were the process of how we are going to do the separation of substances, different substances, right? So this is it. Thank you all. See you in the next session.